These days, we're often told that external validation is inherently unhealthy, and we should only derive our self-worth from ourselves. And that makes sense to me. There is a lot of logic to that philosophy, but there's also a conflicting philosophy, which is the notion that humans, we're not lone wolves. We're not solitary animals by nature. Studies have proven that we actually rely greatly. Our happiness, our mental health is dependent on valuable connections with other human beings. And those with the strongest and most stable, happy relationships are the happiest in life. This is where I think we have to make a distinction between human connection and validation from other humans, right? Maybe you can actually manage to have really strong relationships and derive a lot of happiness from them, and they make you feel good about yourself, but at the same time, you're able to empower yourself and you're not strictly reliant on them for your happiness. But that's just my take. What do you think? OCD, a poem by me, someone living with the condition obsessive compulsive disorder. Yesterday I was walking home, hands full of groceries, and as I walked across the street, a car didn't notice me. I had the right of way and it was pure light of day, but something surely took the driver's eyes away, because she stepped on the gas right as I passed, and though it wasn't too fast, my body tumbled and crashed. I can't say that my life flashed before my eyes. I was hardly injured. Frankly, I was just surprised. After the collision, my day carried on as planned, but as the memory stirred, I came to understand the cliche of near death making one rethink life and live with purpose before the reaper sinks a knife. So in the interest of no longer delaying what matters, I want to share a fragile truth before it shatters. I have obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, with an accompanying case of anxiety. The official diagnosis came just last year, but the symptoms have always been here. I've made allusions in my art spoken in cryptic tongue about the voice that's been in me since I was young. The strange condition comes in countless forms, so each case is unique. There's no standard or norm. I can only speak to emotions I myself have felt and the brutal blows my own OCD has dealt. Let's address how it latches onto each word I say, deconstructing conversations, taking joy away. There's unbelievable pressure on my interactions. I'm so anxious, I often retain just a fraction of the valuable ideas that were truly exchanged, because my brain would rather me needlessly hang on what I said in jest that may have come across wrong, or times I may have held the floor for too long. So if you've ever spoken to me for even a minute and you think I forgot what I said, I didn't. I can't shake conversations from years ago in which I was too loud, quiet, high, or low. I've spent years obsessed with how I come across and stressed when my desired voice is lost. But OCD extends beyond interactions. This condition is notorious for its distractions. And by that I mean, if blessed with a beautiful scene, something so pure and clean and sweet as a dream, my OCD's favorite pastime is saying that's not fine, and instead filling my mind with thoughts that are not mine. So when there's beauty for me to absorb and I ought to, my OCD finds some way for me not to. At its core, when there's good, it locates the bad. When there's glee, it tells me to be hopelessly sad. When the energy is high, I'm needlessly mad. When I'm calm, it asks, what angst can it add? These tendencies are annoying and often discrediting to the brain of a writer, used to the power of editing. Forced to come to grips with what I cannot change, my life story is not one that can be rearranged. I cannot edit out my mistakes or my errors. I cannot trim down depression or terror. And for years I felt a pain, a gnawing feeling of a deep mental wound far from healing. I had to accept that my flaws and disgraces, my least favorite memories, people, and places are part of my foundation. They are part of me. So now what power do you have, OCD? Thank you. Meditation, a practice meant to calm the mind, has made me incredibly anxious, and let me explain why. I'm not talking bad about meditation, I'm talking bad about my meditative practice, and here's where I went wrong. I only meditated in moments when I was already kind of at a breaking point with anxiety. I never fully committed to a daily meditation practice or even, frankly, a weekly meditation practice. I only did it as like a last resort. And so I think this is the problem. If you only do the treatment when you are sick, when you are at your breaking point, you conflate the treatment with the illness. You conflate the remedy with the problem. And when you do that, that makes you not want to try the remedy. And that's why it's essential to actually practice wellness and practice these things like meditation or therapy or whatever works for you. Practice it routinely, even when you're well, even when you're healthy. Let me know if you relate to this or what healthy practice you would like to implement in your daily life. It is very likely in the not so distant future that celebrities will not exist. Let me explain why. I have talked about this in past videos, the idea that everybody kind of is gaining followers on the internet like at increasingly rapid speeds, and people are developing their sectioned off fan bases. People on TikTok will have 5 million followers, yet I've never even heard of them. And how does that work? How can someone have 5 million fans, but essentially their name isn't known anywhere outside of that fan base? Well, that's exactly how social media is structured. It creates these kind of isolated communities in a way where everybody in that community knows this artist. There's certain musicians who can go on tour and sell out massive stadiums, but a lot of people don't even know who they are. Like, would you consider that person a celebrity? Would you consider someone who has 5 million followers? Think about 5 million people. They're not a celebrity somehow. So we are actually decreasing the value of fame by giving so many more people fame. To my fellow creators, if you needed to hear this, sometimes growth is better than consistency. It can be hard to give up on a series you've been working on for years. It can be hard to change your format. It can be hard to pivot genres. It can be hard to start a new endeavor and leave an old one behind, but sometimes that is what's necessary. Sometimes growth is better than consistency. Growth as an artist, learning new things, doing new things, being new things is oftentimes better than just doing what you've always done for the sake of producing a higher volume of art in that series, or staying true to the artist you have been. Stay true to the artist that you are, that you continue to be, that you're going to be. That's my advice. How many stories can be told in one lifetime? I am constantly wondering this. How many finished products, how many stories can I actually put out into the world in my lifetime? And if I had that number, how would I structure them differently? If I knew I would only put out 10 books, would I choose my topics more carefully? If I knew I would only put out 100 short films in my life, how would I decide what those stories should be? And, it baffles me because there's some people who put out content every single day. They put out, some piece of art every single day. Then there's some people who do like 3 films their entire career, just 3 films, or just maybe 5 or 6 novels they release in their whole lifetime. And how do they only release those? I mean, I'm sure there's hundreds of ideas that they scrapped, but those are the ones that they actually took the time to create. So how does one decide what stories to commit to telling? That's a tough one. What do you think?